going to get into a little bit about StartOut, but before I do that, I'll give an introduction on myself. My name is Patrick Driscoll. So I am the VC and fundraising board chair for StartOut, and we do a lot of fantastic events as part of that board around raising funds for your startup, also for our investor community to have access to some great deal flow and a portfolio of companies that come through StartOut. So if you're curious to learn more about that board, or if you're curious to join any of our boards, feel free to reach out to me. I'll share my contact information going forward. But the main organization, why we're here, StartOut, is basically StartOut as a US-based nonprofit organization. It's founded in 2009, and it focuses on really supporting the LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs and startup founders, both in the US and also increasingly abroad. So the mission is really to increase the number, diversity, and impact of LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs, and also to amplify their stories and to drive economic empowerment of the queer community. Over the past 10 years, we've built a community of more than 17,000 people, which is wild, and we support 300 plus entrepreneurs every single year. So in essence, we're all about networking, entrepreneurship, and community. If you're a founder, we provide direct individual support through community events, one-on-one mentorship. I myself am a mentor, so I have some great companies that I work with. There's office hour opportunities with a variety of experts. And then there's a 6-month accelerator program and investor connections. And you can check out this slide for additional opportunities that you can get via the StartOut network. Next slide, Emma. So we also have some fantastic sponsors. So a special shout out to the main sponsor for this event, Lora DiCarlo, who's actually going to be on our panel. And in addition to many of our sponsors who keep us afloat, we rely on all of them to continue our fantastic programming. Now, before we get into introductions, I wanted to quickly discuss some logistics for Zoom. I'm going to go through introductions for the panel and then some Q&A that I've prepared with the panel as well. Then we're going to open it up to the room for your own questions. However, please note that there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Please use that for your questions. Oftentimes we have folks try to ask questions in chat and we don't often see them because it gets pushed all the way to the top with folks chatting, so on and so forth. So the Q&A, that's your best bet for getting your question to be seen and asked. Fantastic. So I know we're kind of in a spooky season. I have my pumpkin candle, my calavera as well from Mexico. So I'm super, super stoked. My Halloween costume is all ready for this weekend. And we are here to chat about one of the spookiest things in a founder's life, and that's failure. And we brought on a panel of really fantastic folks from around the entrepreneurship community and the investor community and startup community to discuss these topics. And I'm going to and now it's my pleasure really to introduce each of them. I'm going to say their names and their titles first, and then I'm going to pass it off to each of you to discuss a little bit about what you do and your background and things like that. So to begin, I'd love to intro Lora DiCarlo. As the founder and CEO of Lora DiCarlo. So with that, feel free to say anything else, Lora, that you'd like, and then I'll get on to the next panelist.
I love being the first one to get put on the spot. I'm just like, yeah, my name's Lora Haddock DiCarlo. I'm the founder and CEO of Lora DiCarlo. We're actually we started out as a robotics company that makes products that move like humans do. Biomimicry and microrobotics. Biomimicry is the mimicry of biological motion, and in our case, it's human motion. So we're actually emulating the way that a human partner feels when you're getting it on. So instead of just vibration. So the goal of the company is to really kind of tackle the stigma around sexuality and masturbation and identity that so many people have by allowing people to explore their sexuality with positivity and confidence. So we started out as a robotics company, and now we are kind of moving into a more holistic approach to sexual health and wellness by providing coaching, and in some cases therapy, a lot of content and education and edutainment. So because we find that most people, the biggest barrier to entry in anything is a lack of education. So our goal is to provide that education in the safest place possible, and never disparage anybody for just having questions. And then the third aspect of the company is we're starting to get more into sexual health and wellness, excuse me, consumable items like pills, tinctures, lubes, CBD lubes. So kind of really closing the loop on everything, trying to be that holistic platform for anybody that wants to have to kind of discover and explore their sexuality. Oh, you're muted.
I am indeed. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Darien Marion-Burton, who is a president at DM Burton.
I was really hoping as Laura was talking that I wasn't going to have to follow her because it was so cool. But my name's Darien Marion-Burton. I'm the president of DM Burton. We are a marketing startup. We help small to medium-sized businesses and nonprofit organizations, as well as startups, create scalable marketing plans for sustainable growth. I spent a whole bunch of time in fashion for a little while, so we actually started off as a fashion brand. I wanted to take on Trunk Club and Stitch Fix. Found out that like algorithms and that were not my jam. I really wanted to help people. So we took a step back and we had allowed on our website that we could style your business. And from that, we kind of started morphing into a marketing agency that's really focused on giving small organizations access to marketing campaigns that look good, that feel good, that they can be proud of, but also come in at a really good budget. And yeah, that's what we do.
Thank you very much, Darien. Hopefully you can help me with fashion failures after this going forward, because I'm famous for those. Next up, we have Jim Arnoff. He is with Arnoff Coaching and Consulting. He's a career business life coach, talent agent consultant, entertainment lawyer, and finally adjunct faculty at the School of Visual Arts.
Thank you, Patrick. This is Arnoff Coaching and Consulting. It's all me. I have no employees, no consultants, and I absolutely love it that way. I'm calling from the West Village in Manhattan, New York City. Darren ticked off my 4 careers. They're all in the entertainment world. Career, life, and business. Career is what you would think it is. Life, I coach people around everything else outside of their career. And that comes from my being a volunteer at a fabulous nonprofit here in New York City called Identity House. And we do peer counseling and peer group facilitating for the LGBT+ community. So that's career number 1. I use my background as a talent agent. I was with William Morris, the big talent agency, for 10 years. And now I consult as a talent agent. I work with people on their pitches, their sizzle reels. You probably don't know what that is. It's a visual representation of a movie or TV series. That's career number 2. Career number 3, I'm an entertainment lawyer. Emphasize entertainment. So if you need a criminal lawyer, immigration lawyer, matrimonial lawyer, that is so not me. But if you want to option a property, I'm your guy. And my 4th career is I'm a faculty member of School of Visual Arts. No surprise, my course is called Pitching Your TV Series to the Industry Pros. I've had the wonderful experience of doing workshops for StartOut. Shocking. They're all about practicing your pitch before you pitch the angel investors. So thank you, StartOut.
Thank you, Jim. And finally, we have Fabio De Sio, who's an LGBTQ business mentor and motivational speaker.
Thank you, Patrick. Hi, all. I am a business coach and mentor for LGBTQ people. I am a speaker and I work with the companies doing a workshop and the presentation on diversity, inclusivity, and equality. Right now, I'm in London. I'm based in London. It's Halloween. I have something for all of you. I'm prepared for tomorrow and tonight. Right now here, it's midnight, so I have a glass of wine as well. I'm joking. And I studied as well mindfulness. I study hypnotherapy as well. So don't worry, I will not hypnotize all of you. But I have a unique method with my clients, especially when they have some issues. They can be all kind, and I know how to deal with them, because I really enjoy tonight the topic, because it's something that most of my clients, they have, how to deal with the failure. But with one of my biggest passion as well is to motivate people and how to change how to see difficulties in a positive way. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Fabio. All right, now off to the races. So I have prepared some questions that will help kind of set the stage and get all of your brain juices flowing to ask your own questions of the panelists. And all of these are why failure should not be brushed under the rug, but rather embraced, studied, and learned from. And I really want to ask the first question to all of you. I can run down a list, which might be easiest. So failure is a scary word that everyone likes to avoid. However, as entrepreneurs and coaches and general badasses in your industry, why should we not avoid it? And what can you really learn at the top level from failure? So we'll start with you, Laura.
Kill me today, Patrick. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like when I started, I was terrified of failure. It actually, I think one of the biggest problems that I had with facing failure was literally my fear of failure caused a failure to launch in a lot of cases, which just means, you know, I used to kind of identify as a perfectionist. You don't get shit done if you're just trying to be perfect all the time. You don't get shit done if you're too afraid to fail. So, you know, I think kind of one of the things that I kind of, how I approach failure is literally, I'm trying to think of like kind of how I put this last time, like how to get over business failure, or how to, I'm thinking. I'm also having a giant brain fart right now. I don't know why. I think one of the things with business failure or approaching business failure is just, oh my God, I'm having a huge brain fart right now. I don't know why.
Oh, good.
It's been a long ass day.
It has. And
literally been in legal calls all day long, and I'm just like, I think like one of the biggest things is that failure to launch. And also, if you're able to really take a look at the possible failures that you're facing, think of the worst case scenario and write it down. Then think of the best case scenario, write that down. Then think about all of the things in between and write those down. Now think about, what are you gonna do in the worst case scenario? How are you gonna react? How are you gonna solve the problem? And then it's not that hard anymore. And then think about, and literally give yourself kind of a minute to think about like, but what if I succeed? What are the benefits to that? And if I fail, is it really that bad? Or is it just maybe an option or an opportunity to be able to pivot and pick up and move and learn in that instance? I go through failures on a regular basis. And sometimes I think when we're making decisions about like, you know, which direction to take, if you're at a junction and you're like, do I go right or left? All you have to really think is like, I think I need to make this decision based on my values. And our values at Lora DiCarlo are respect, empowerment, and integrity. And as long as we're always making those decisions based on those values, it's always going to be the right decision. It might not be the easy decision, might be the hardest decision, but it will be the right decision. And ultimately, those that may know a little bit about my story, we won a hell of a prize for robotics in innovation in robotics from the Consumer Electronics Show a couple of years ago. And then they took it away because sex is bad. They actually called our products immoral, obscene, and profane. And that scared the shit out of me. I thought, we can't say anything. This is like one of the biggest tech associations in the world. They're going to laugh at me if I say anything. But if I don't, that goes against my values. So we decided to fight them. And ultimately, we ended up winning at the end of the day. Not only that, but we launched an international awareness campaign around the gender bias in tech. They ended up giving our award back, but we did it even one better, where we actually negotiated to change their policies to allow sex tech to be at all of their future shows. And so now you see sex tech at that show within the health and wellness space. And we're pushing forward to normalize that by allowing it to be in that kind of mainstream space. So I apologize for the big, huge brain fart, but it's been a week.
No, absolutely. And that's definitely making, lemonade out of some lemons there, Laura.
Yeah.
I love that part of your story.
Thanks.
No, fantastic. So Fabio, how about you? What can we learn from failure? It sounds like you work with folks on a regular basis on this topic. So
Yes, okay. Failure, let's be honest, hurts. So failure, we don't, it's an awful feeling. So we don't want to have it, but I think it's necessary in life. Now, if you think, Fabio, you drank, no, it's fundamental as an entrepreneur because we can grow. As I have failed so many times in my life, in business, in relationships, in all aspects of my life. But from that, I have learned to be more compassionate, to be more empathic, and to be more kind. And what I've noticed with the failure, it depends with different kind of people. For example, I work with the CEOs, with the managers, and with other people too. And we are all human beings, so the emotions are the same, but the skill set is different. So every person, every perception is completely different than another one. And what I've noticed that this is so important because most of the time people see failure in a way that, oh my God, it's only me. It's a story that we tell to ourselves that most of the time is not real. And when I work with people, what I say most of the time, ask to yourself if the story that you're telling is true. And really important is the difference that when you say, the difference of I am a failure, I have failed. Because when you make it are so different, one is based on shame, one is based on guilt. So they're completely different and that are really crucial. And the solution of that is a bounce back. As all entrepreneurs, we have to bounce back. We have to become resilient, and the only way is to accept, to be, and to embrace failure. I know that can sound a bit challenging, but when we embrace failure, we can change. We can become a better entrepreneurs. And most of the time, when we see successful people, I would like to know more about their journeys. Most entrepreneurs, we know only about success, but where is the moment where they had issues? Like right now, Lora, she was telling us their struggle, and we really appreciate that moment. And in that moment, we can be empathic with her. And this kind of stories can make an entrepreneur more approachable, and that is something that will really look forward. So this is what I think about failure.
Fabio, I love that. I didn't even realize. I'm like, yeah, big fat fail right there. I'm like, how perfect. Very, very aptly put.
Yeah, because it's great. Because every time, because you can inspire people. You know, sometimes we see these all successful people, but the journey. My favorite entrepreneur is Richard Branson, and in fact, my business here in UK has been founded by this organization called the Virgin Startup. It's a no-profit, but I like him because he really embraced failure, and he failed so many times, and so for this reason, thank you, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabio. Excellent points. Now over to Jim.
Thank you. I'm going to build on a lot what Fabio said. I have a great mantra. I didn't come up with it. An amazing motivational speaker by the name of Mastin Kipp, MASTINKIPP, based in LA. He says, failure is how you get there. And I first looked at it and read it, and I went, what are you talking about? And then I realized failure means that you've taken a risk. You put yourself out there. And if risk is is a very charged word. Use the phrase, a bold, courageous step. I actually say intuitive, soul-centered risks. That's what entrepreneurs are about. It's about taking risks that match with your values. Thank you, Laura. And it doesn't mean, just like Fabio said, that you are a failure. And that's what most people think. I'm a failure, all of me. Meanwhile, no, what you did, that particular action was a failure. You could call it, it didn't work out.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, anything to take that emotional charge, that self-judgment out, neutralizes it and gives you the courage to keep going till you find, which is not difficult, find's too complicated, till you suddenly declare what you're passionate about, right? Because when you're passionate about whatever you do, that's where the courage comes. And all of a sudden failure is like, of course, that was a failure. What did I, just like Fabio said, what did I learn from it? How did I grow from it? So for me, failure is my best friend. I mean, I failed, and it's even hard for me to say I failed in anything because it didn't feel like a failure. I grew from it. It felt miserable in the moment. Thank you, Fabio. And somebody handed me a book after my failure, and it said, when smart people fail. And I'm thinking, get rid of that book. I felt awful. I'm a failure. Well, in the moment, it absolutely can feel like that. And if I had a coach at the time, which I didn't, I would have gotten through that misery a lot quicker. And so for me, failure is your best friend.
I want to just play off what Jim was saying. I think like when he said coach, I think the other thing too is to like surround yourself with a really great support system and talking about your failures in the middle of them and then post. It just being able to vocalize what's gone on and being able to analyze with another human being really helps you kind of break down exactly what happened and how you can move forward in the future. So I love that because I think that all the time. I see my therapist every single Friday. I talk to my executive coach every single Thursday, and we just talk about how I fuck shit up.
Love it. Surround yourself with your supporters, right? That you can be truthful with. All right, and finally, Darien, anything else to add to this topic?
I feel like you guys said it all. But no, I think failing is one of my favorite things to do. And it's like for two reasons, right? One, everybody fails. Like it is like one of the only things we have in common. And so like I have had like situations where I've been like, oh God, oh shit, I'm the only one who knows what I'm going through. And the second I tell somebody, they're like, oh wait, let me tell you, I got this person that knows it. And like, it's just, I really think that like failing, just like in talking about it is just one of the most freeing things that you can do. But I also think that, right, you learn so much from failing. And every time that I've failed, I've leveled the fuck up afterwards. And so like, I think about my entire life. I was born to an incarcerated mother in the west side of Chicago. Like, world was not made for me to succeed. And throughout my life, I grew up in a nice upper middle class neighborhood, thank you to my grandparents. But like, I was always kind of behind the ball. And I remember I got kicked out of college. I went back and graduated with honors. That happened. I got fired from my first startup job because I was inappropriate at a golf outing. Fun fact, I am now on the board of directors for the organization that threw the golf outing. So I think I had a great time. But really, I think that all these experiences have taught me that in failing, we learn about our grit. We get more creative. We, reignite our passion. We once had somebody skip us on a $15,000 bill. And it was in our first year of operations. And I was like, that's like payroll for 2 months. That's like some real money. We've bootstrapped this business. Like, what am I gonna do? I look at where my business was, that was November 2019, and where it was at November 2020. And not only during the pandemic did we grow, our operations were stronger. We had more things in place. We switched to a better business model that worked for us. And, we really took it as a learning experience. And that's what I've done every time I fail. And, honestly, like this is a real raw topic for me right now because I was having this conversation about how I'm failing on an account right now and I just don't know what to do. And I was talking with somebody and I talked my way out of it and realized that yeah, I'm gonna fail. Cool, great. Next, like I gotta move on and like go to the next thing. And I think that that's kind of how everybody needs to take failure.
Absolutely. And I know as an investor, I see a lot of pitches from companies specifically, and I'll be talking with founders who will try to brush failure under the rug or pretend like their first company didn't exist or something like they weren't able to raise a significant round and their company went under. However, I'm curious as to what they were able to learn from those types of experiences and if they're able to pivot and really grow and level up. I think somebody mentioned leveling up earlier, and I love that. Darien, that was you. How you were able to level up to become the founder where you are today. So you can even spin it, right, to your advantage in front of investors or in front of new business development opportunities. Now, Darien, this next question is for you as well. Just right back over to you. So you work in marketing, right? So I'm curious if you have any advice how you mentioned some of the failures you've had in the past, but if you're working with somebody not only on their brand, but how they're going to do like a sales development strategy or something like that, how would you recommend they talk about failures maybe in a strategic way? Obviously not upfront bragging about it, but if it comes up from kind of a marketing perspective. You're muted, by the way.
Oops, that's awkward. That's a good question. I think that you have to be really authentic about it, right? I think that that's the most crucial step. And that means, right, I don't talk about the fact that we've lost an account or like a bad situation has happened with somebody or right, like it doesn't really come up. And when somebody asks about it, I think it's about being, I'm so honest about some things. And I've been like, yeah, like we developed that strategy and like it wasn't hitting, like like I would have maybe done this and this differently. And when this happens with clients, and I think a lot about this from an operational standpoint for our business, we are producing in any given day over 200 social media posts. There's a high likelihood that something is going to get messed up. And, we've had instances where we haven't necessarily messed up on strategy, but we've messed up like spelling the client's name wrong in an email like subject line, like horrible things for a brand. And the first thing I do in those situations is always reach out to our clients and assure them. But like, I also think, how can we make this fun? Like, how can we like make this a little more funny? Like, like it was the day after Thanksgiving, like maybe we talk about being in a turkey coma. Like, I think that there are ways that you can spin what's happening in the real world. I do this all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm late. Sorry. Like it's COVID. Like, I don't know. Like it's just where the world is at that point. And I think that, right, this goes back to, I think, everyone being honest about failing, right? Like I'm a perfectionist and like I hate that word. My therapist says I shouldn't say it, but like I like things to be a very particular way. And like I've had to learn that 99% of the time, those things are probably not going to be the way that I want them to go. But the more that I can continue to build on things and the more that we can continue to kind of like rethink and reimagine how we're doing things, I think the better we become. And the more that you communicate that in your brand story, talk about the evolution of your business and where it started and where it's come from and where it's going. I think people really buy into stories. And the more that you can tell your story, I think the better your pitches are going to be and your marketing is going to be.
Thank you. No, that's some amazing advice. And now, in the vein of pitching, I'd love to ask the next question to Jim, who is a pitch master, as it seems to be. So as kind of a life career coach, you work with a ton of startups on pitching in front of angels, also for different types of entertainment projects. How do you deal with someone you're coaching when maybe they don't get the check or they don't get funded for their entertainment project or their new TV show or whatever? How do you coach them through that process and get them ready for the next one? What advice do you have for those folks that hit failure? And you're muted as well. Okay, friendly reminder.
Right. Actually, great lead in. It's actually not about the next one yet.
Okay.
It's about, really, you use pitch master, so I'll use the word master. It's about them mastering that relationship, right? So my clients, create motion pictures, they do digital series, they do primetime series, and they're pitching networks or production companies. And 99.99% of the time they get, we don't call it a rejection, we call it a pass in the industry. And we call it a pass with a share. And if there is no share, we ask for the share. So the client is constantly getting information about that network, that production company, they're getting feedback, because I come from, and this is also Mastin Kemp, yes, no, it's actually from The Prosperous Coach, which is an amazing book for anybody. Yes lives in the land of no. So it may be the feedback for the pitch, they can change it if it aligns with their vision, or they may go, now I have a much clearer sense of what would be a fit for your network or your production company. So it's taking that pass, not a failure, not a rejection, and learning from it and strengthening the relationship. That the pitching is all about. It's all about relationship building. It's all about, okay, great if you buy my film or buy my TV series. What's really underneath all of it is creating and strengthening a relationship. So before my clients run on and go, okay, that's a pass, goodbye, get out of here. It's like, what are all the opportunities to cement that relationship? And then, of course, whatever feedback they get, they can integrate that into pitching the next network or the next production company if that feedback aligns with their creative vision. Because the last thing you want anybody to be is a yes person, right? Because especially if it's a creative vision, whoever is going to buy it wants to be sure that you're clear about the vision and you're going to stick to that vision no matter what.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question? I'm not sure I did.
Yeah, no, that totally checks out. And I think you bring up a good point with surrounding yourself not only with good people, but not just yes people, right? So you want to surround yourself with people that will challenge you and push you grow, right?
Yeah, and there are many beauties of being a coach is, since as a coach, I'm there 100% for the client, I can say anything I want to the client. I love doing that. So I am unfiltered, direct, in the most supportive way. So I've been known to say to a client, you're really pissing me off. And usually it's when they're putting themselves down, right? Minimizing their achievements, and they keep doing it over and over again to shake things up and to get them to see what they're doing. Sometimes I need to say, you're pissing me off. So yes, you want colleagues, what I call your support team, to share with you in the most supportive way exactly how they can support you, how they can call you out, and at the same time listen in a very empathic way.
No, that's a very good point. And now in terms of folks who are in the midst of failure and they piss you off, quote unquote, because they're getting down on themselves, I want to hand this off to Fabio. How, as kind of a life coach, mentor, motivational speaker, you work with folks that are going through failure that might be a little bit down on themselves, what advice do you have to them and how they can get through this period of kind of feeling low?
Yeah, a failure, as I said, it's okay to fail, first of all. It's okay. So when with my clients, we talk about that most of the time, the most important relationship that we all have is the relationship with ourselves. Who do you think is the worst critic when we fail? It's us. It's you, because we judge ourselves in such a negative way. The most of the time is the relationship, when I work with my client, is the relationship with my client, with himself or herself, or wherever it comes, with you know, the most important relationship is that one. After that, we have to build again the confidence, self-esteem, all the aspects that sometimes failure can create, and it's okay. As I said before, of course, a CEO is different than an entrepreneur that just open a business, because a CEO has already had some success, so is more confident. But at the same time, there are responsibilities. So when there are responsibility as well, I had some clients where for them, they didn't want to grow. They were afraid to have, when they had a new idea, new product, because they were thinking, oh my God, if this product will not be good, what can happen to the company? But at the end of the day, CEOs, they have to be courageous, to be brave if they want that their company can be innovative. And as well, different, completely different if you are, you just start, you want to open a company, okay? I think the best advice I can tell is, about the acceptance. So don't think, my business immediately is going to be, I'm going to be the future Bill Gates, okay, with one company. No, with time, you need, you will grow all of that. And I think being, when I work as well with the companies, it's really important the communication, for example, the lack of communication there are, for example, in team. And when I talk about, I do workshop as well about public speaking, and I can feel it, the importance of words that we use, because words are fundamental. And during a workshop, and I can add all of you tonight that are listening me, I always ask to the people to choose one word to give me at the end of the workshop, but they will not use ever. So think about a word that you will not use ever again in your life. For example, now it's Halloween. Are you sure that you are not going to use any more Halloween in your life? So the challenge with the people when I do workshop, all of them, they always come with a negative word that they want to change, because that can be the big aspect, the relationship with words, with ourselves. And another advice I can give all of you tonight, ask always two questions. What if? Because always say, oh, what if I fail? What if something negative happens? But the other question is, why not? Why not? Why? There are so many opportunities, if in all aspects. And this is the way I can see failure. And I know that with my client, it's about to reframe. As Jim said, it's really important with our client to be as well a bit tough and to ask the right question, because the question is the answer when we work as a coach. When you ask the right question, the client can think about that experience, and we can reframe the experience, because most of the time as a human beings, we are focused on the negative aspect. We don't like to see the positive. There are so many studies around that. So for me, that I'm a coach, is so important that they can see the positive on any experience. So thank you so much, Patrick.
Absolutely, thank you. Now, Laura, so in terms of when you kind of got the bad news from the Consumer Technology Association, what that you fought back against, and you might have felt a little dejected, I'm sure you were pissed as well, but what did you immediately do? So what would your advice be to founders that just got that bad news? and they want to really vent and they want to feel better, or maybe they just want to, do a self-imposed isolation. What advice do you have for folks recently getting some bad news from someone?
So your first question is, what did I do?
Yeah.
I cried. I cried a lot. I was like, what the fuck? We were so excited because when we got the award originally, we being a pansexual femme and with a team of mostly queer and femme-facing engineers of 6, we're tiny. We thought it was a signaling of the changing of the times. We thought, oh my gosh, they're actually taking us seriously. This is so cool. Maybe this is a bigger signifier that the larger bout of society is going to follow suit quicker than we thought originally. And then we were wrong. And so I remember my publicist called me and she's like, are you sitting down? And I was like, I'm in a meeting with my engineers right now. What's going on? And she's like, you got to sit down. So I sat down. I had to go outside of the conference room, sit down, and she tells me, and she's like, they're taking your award away. And all of the air just went out of me. I was terrified. As strong as I think I am, I was terrified in that moment. And I felt so dejected and so lost and so helpless. And I realized very quickly, I felt personally affronted. This was my baby. This was my dream. This was our project. And it was amazing. It was incredible. OSE, most vibrators or sex tech has like 20 to 50 parts in it. OSE has over 230 parts and doesn't use vibration. It actually moves like a human does. And that sucked. And I took a minute to kind of breathe. And immediately, I think instead of just going into yourself, I think you should always pursue self-care. I do yoga every single morning. I meditate every single morning. I get up at 5 o'clock so I can work out and have some time to myself. But in that moment, all I wanted to do was crawl inside of myself. But what I had done before you reach failure is I had surrounded myself with the kind of support system that I needed. And that support system lashed out and went, we're going to fix this. And, got me thinking immediately, like, yeah, you're right. We can do something about this. So instead of feeling dejected and, wanting to crawl inside of a hole, I surrounded myself with people that weren't as close to it as I was. And they could think a little bit more logically and go, hey, this is what we can do. And so instead of, feeling sorry for myself, we took action immediately. But that was because I had already surrounded myself with a support system that that cared about me and that knew, like when you have a friend that feels dejected or like they get dumped or something, you don't feel shitty because you didn't get dumped. So you want to help your friend. You want to make sure that they feel good and that they can move on. That, you want to take them out, go have a drink, like go play the field, do whatever you're going to do that's going to make you feel better. But it's really hard to do that when you're the one that feels dejected. So surround yourself with as much close, good support as possible. Because I guarantee you, not only can you not do this alone, and you shouldn't think that you should have to, maybe Jim can, but it's not really logical to think that you can conquer the world by yourself. And so my job has always been to inspire the folks that work for us and rely on their expertise and their experiences, because I can't live all of their experiences and I can't have their expertise. So we work together as a team.
Love that. Yeah. And surrounding yourself, as a founder, I always recommend getting into founder communities, right? There's going to be a lot of similar experiences and shared experiences with fellow founders. And you all can go to that happy hour or go to that party or even coffee shop or whatever and compare different failures, compare the checks you didn't get, compare the pitch that you flubbed up. Everyone has stories, and sometimes it's super fun to get into those types of events. And even as investors in my investor community, there's investors themselves who seem kind of like godlike and write the checks and all these things. They mess up all the time. and write bad checks, or don't write checks in the next Uber or whatever. And they like to get together in community levels and talk about how they've, basically fucked up. So that's a really good piece of advice. And now we are getting some questions from the audience, which is super good to see. A gentle reminder that if you do have a question, make sure it's in the Q&A function. And that way I'll be able to see it and we can run through them. So first we have a question from Stephen. I like this actually. So is there a structured mechanism that you employ to ensure that you can extract insight from failings? So any sort of framework that you recommend where you can take a look at a failure and maybe find something that you can use from it to go forward?
Sure. This is from a fellow motivational speaker. She says, rather than saying, why did this happen to me? She says, why is this happening for me? And it works in every situation where I shift it, just like Fabio said, from the negative to, you can call it positive, insightful. Why is this happening for me? How can it move me forward? And every time I go to the negative, we know what happens there. When I go to the insight for me, and it's not always in the moment, it's gotten a lot sooner to the moment than in my past. I get all kinds of insights. That one preposition from 2 to 4 shifts the entire energy for me.
Any other tools or tricks, Fabio, Darien, or Laura, for learning from failure?
Yeah, I really like it. Jim said, write the story. If you fail, write the story all the time. Because when you write a story, you can see if it's real or it's not real. How many times we think, because we create in our mind movies all the time, okay? And our reality, my reality is different than all of you tonight. Because it depends from our childhood, from our experiences of our life. So we create our reality. So ask all the time, write the stories of your failure after what happened. And Jimmy said, you change a proposition and everything you know about the experience, you can understand the new aspects of you. And as we said tonight a few times, how you can learn different aspects of yourself that you didn't know before. And after, how you can strategize better because when we fail, when we make mistakes, the better thing is we don't make any more of these mistakes, so we can grow from that. So what I say all the time to my clients, let's write the story that you're telling to yourself, and let's not be focused on be aware, self-awareness. We start with awareness, you can go everywhere. Because when you become aware about the situation without blaming anybody, because blame is no good, there you can move on and move forward.
Love that. I always tell folks to capture success stories, but don't forget to capture those failure stories and make sure you can review them and learn from them. That's great. Any other insights on this, strategies, Darien?
Yeah, so, I think it goes back to self-care and self-awareness. So I try to check in with myself at least 3 times a day. For me, that's when I'm walking my dog in the morning, right? Like, I'm like, all right, like, what didn't I love about yesterday? What happened that, like, I was just like, or like, what happened that gave me some feeling in my gut that I need to investigate it? And like, I kind of like go through and make a very mental priority list. And then the first thing I do when I get in the office, before I like check my email, I sit down and pour myself a cup of coffee. I put on NPR and I just take 10 minutes to understand what's like happening in the world. And then, I go about my day, 17 million fires happen, run around to 7 different meetings. It's great. And then usually at like 2:00, I from 2 to 2:15, nobody can bother me. You can't book the time on my calendar. I take a walk around our office building and I just talk to people, interact, clear my head. It lets me get my creative pouring out of me and like talking with my like content creators and thinking about strategy. And then at the end of the day, I call our COO and we have like a quick 10-minute bitch session about everything that happened for the day that pissed us off in some way, personal, business related, employee related. And like, we just leave it there. And then I go to sleep happy, wake up and like, we're all good. I may be doing a lot.
Anything?
To add on to what Darren was saying, you know, check in with yourself, check in with those around you too. You know, we're a physical consumer product company first and foremost, and you know, when you're making stuff that is supposed to be used by a lot of different people, you're bound to make mistakes. So, I mean, I think being clear and brazen about the fact that you're not going to be perfect all the time, and being transparent with your consumers and your partners and your vendors is really essential. And also understanding that you can't know how to fix everything. So putting it out there to the world is also not a bad idea. We actually go in and we survey and do studies with our consumer base as much as, you know, once a year, and we'll just ask them everything under the sun. How much do you love, you know, and all the products that we design, those go through extensive testing where we actually put them in the hands of people before we ever launch them and say, how could this be better? How could this be different? What are we doing wrong? And what can we be doing right? So having the humility to say, I don't know everything, but I'm trying, I think that's also essential.
Another great point. Thank you, Laura. And I know in terms of teams, since we do have founders on the line, if you have small teams, when you're giving feedback sessions to your employees and your fellow teammates, obviously be as positive as humanly possible, but provide that constructive criticism as in the framework of like a review. I know I've had managers myself who only give me positive feedback, and then I continue to do the things that I'm not doing incorrectly. So if I have somebody who's able to give me feedback that's both constructive and positive, then I can actually take an initiative to really attack that either skill that's lacking, or maybe I'm overlooking something, and I can either coach myself or go to external help to kind of improve in that way. So even when you're looking at your team, there are different frameworks you can look into. Awesome. So here is a question which I feel like many founders might be feeling, which has to do with the pandemic and feeling kind of run down and just tired, and maybe we're not going to make it. So Michael or Michael, I apologize in the pronunciation. What do you say to a company of one who's trying to recover from pandemic, who feels like closing because the money's not there, but the teams and growth and opportunities are? So there's a market, but they can't quite bridge the gap, and they're just not feeling super great right now. Jim, looks like you unmuted quickly.
Yes. Well, the first thing I would do is, let's say it's a client, is acknowledge their resilience and that they've gotten through the pandemic and they're getting through the pandemic. So acknowledging that would be number one. Number two, just like we said earlier, you know, what have you learned about yourself? What insights have you gotten during the pandemic? I would also have them redeclare, if there is such a word, what's your true passion? What's your mission in life? Which is what I coach clients around, and I can't believe I get paid to do that. So have them recommit, redeclare what they're all about, what brings them joy, and know that the pandemic, again, I would go back to, why did the pandemic happen for me? Yes, it happened to the world. We let go of the world. Why did the pandemic happen for me? And you'll get so many insights. And I love what Fabio said about writing down all of your stories. Call that creative writing. An alternative, which works better, like for me, I say them out loud. That works for me much better. Not to myself, not to my wall. I get witnessed by a close friend that's a great listener, that's non-judgmental. So when I tell my stories out loud, I hear them deeper. So either, it doesn't matter which way you do it, write them down. If you do write them down, I would have you, of course, reread it, have others safely read them as well. In fact, maybe have that safe person read the story back to you and see what that feels like.
Anyone else? Any insight to that founder or founders out there like in that situation?
Okay, yes. For me, for example, as well for me, when I had to change completely my business, because I used to go to companies, I like workshops where I can see people, I needed the connection, and for me as well, I had to change, and I like to meet my clients in my office, I'm honest, where I can see them, because as a coach, for me, it's important to see that when they speak, okay, I'm glad that tonight we can do that, because it is amazing. This is why the internet is it's been so fundamental during the pandemic. But from my point of view as an entrepreneur, I like to see my client and to see, to look him in the eyes, to look, to all the body language. So I had completely to change my business. So to be comfortable working, with Zoom and as well to do webinars and completely change my business. So if you're living right now a difficult moment and you want to you wanted to find a solution about this particular challenge. I always think as that and Jim said if there is someone that you tell the stories aloud as well as a good way, because after you have to do it. If this person is close to you, you have this person that are going to ask you, have you done that? Like with the question, so it's really good. It's good strategy, and but as well, if always don't be focused only about your business. Right now, I don't know what you are doing right now, but probably if you can, there are other possibilities. Sometimes when we are focused only on one thing, we don't know other possibilities that can be. So I always think to be open-minded is the best way that that this pandemic was really important. And the question that Jim asked, I asked all my friends during the pandemic. I say, why right now we are living this pandemic? Why the universe give us this opportunity after I said during the pandemic? What we have to learn from all of that? Can be too idealistic, but I think it's a good question to ask.
Absolutely. Now, that is crazy that we're already at the hour. So unfortunately, we're running out of time. And I did want to let each of our panelists say, a thank you to the attendees and plug anything they'd like to plug before I wrap up at the end. So I'll start with, let's see, Darien, if you'd like to wrap up.
First off, thank you so much to StartOut for having me. This was absolutely fabulous. I feel like I learned so much from all of my fellow panelists here. I have this quote, and it's from Jen Searso. It's life often turns to shit before it turns to shinola. And I keep that with me all the time. Like, just know that failure is something that's going to catapult you into probably your next biggest success if you play it right. I also realized that I also speak very anecdotally and I talk a lot about my failures, but that's like a very small part of our business. We are very confident in what we do. And I would love to give anybody who would like a free marketing consultation or free month of service, everything's listed on our website to sign up. That opportunity, you can shoot me an email at darien@dmburton.co. I'll drop that in the chat, or you can slide into our DMs on Instagram at dmburtonstyle. And yeah, just mention that I told you that I'd give you a free month and I'll make it happen. So yeah, thanks guys.
Take you up on that.
Laura?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody that's here. Like, especially if you're a founder or an entrepreneur, like being in these spaces is going to be absolutely essential for you, because it's a lonely job, and not very many people are going to understand your journey. So, if this is your first time actually like kind of being in this space, I highly encourage reaching out to other founders in other spaces and cohorts where you can actually be surrounded by people that understand what you're going through. And so just really happy that y'all are here. And I think like my My favorite quote that I've been using a lot this year, especially being a founder, is that I actually once met an investor, an entrepreneur, and he told me, growth breaks things, Laura. And they were right. Because transformation doesn't happen inside of complacency and comfort. If you want to create great change, you actually have to be willing to operate outside of your comfort zone. You have to be willing to fail. And growth breaks things so that you can create something new and stronger and more beautiful in its place. So yeah, being an entrepreneur is probably the hardest thing that you'll ever do, is for me. But it's never too hard. It's hard enough. Because if you want the life that you want, then you're going to have to give up the life that you have. And, you know, for those of you that have teams, where your teams are concerned, every individual's, just like constantly remember, because teams can be really hard, people can be really hard. Every individual's reality is not necessarily the truth, but it is their truth. And no one will ever be as invested in you or your business as you are. That means that everyone is actually invested in themselves, right? So when you ask your team to work hard for you, make sure that their investment in your business is an equivalent to an investment in themselves. Practice altruism. You need to live your values, support your team, invest in them and help them grow, because your investment in them is also an investment in yourself. And also, I wanted to know if Jim is taking on new clients.
Jim, I'll hand it off to you.
Well, speaking of plugs, and I love that we're calling it plugs, part of authenticity, is my gift to all the attendees and panelists is a complimentary 30-minute coaching session on Zoom or FaceTime. Just reach out to me at my old school, yes, AOL.com. I love it. And be sure in the header, the subject matter, you put Start Out Workshop Amazing Tonight. So I know you're not spam or something else. And one further tip, which has worked for me beautifully, is say yes to almost everything.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. And Fabio, close it out.
Okay, thank you very much, all of you. Here it's 1 a.m., so I'm really enjoyed this night, and now it's time to go to party. No, I'm joking. But I really loved this time with all of you. I've learned so much. If you, if you need anyone, if you need an Italian can talk about diversity, inclusivity, and equality, I'm here for that. I do webinar and workshop on that. In 2 weeks, I'm going to Malta for a conference where I will talk about diversity and innovation. So this is something that is really important. I'm so passionate about that. And as well, you can contact me for any reason on my emails, and now I will write on the chat my email. You can see my website, and I would be happy to help you, because I am a founder as well with the StartOut, and as a mentor I really enjoyed it, because it's one of the best things, and I really love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fabio, and thank you so much to all of our fantastic panelists. Special shout out to our sponsor, Lora DiCarlo, as well, for the event. And with that, if you want to learn more about StartOut, check out the website. Again, we're looking for board members for this upcoming year. So if you're curious to learn more about becoming part of the board, I can highly recommend it. You do fun, cool events like this all the time. Reach out to either myself, I can put my LinkedIn, or you could check out the website, startout.org, to find information there. All right, thanks everyone. I know it's late and we're beyond the hour, so have a good Halloween, stay safe, and yeah, go party for Halloween.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.